Hi, hello and welcome back to F1 Challenge VB. My name is Mephisto and our epic journey through the history of Formula 1 continues today with the 10th and final round of the 1964 season, the Mexican Grand Prix. It was held on the 25th of October, it had 19 entries, all of them took part in the race with 6 ending up retiring. The race consisted of 65 laps completed in 2 hours, 9 minutes and 50 seconds. Clark started the race from pole with Gurney in 2nd, Bandini 3rd, Surtees 4th, Spence 5th and Graham Hill started from 6th. After a superb drive, Dan Gurney won the Mexican Grand Prix from Surtees, who finished 1 minute 8.94 seconds after Gurney. Bandini ended the race in 3rd, he was 1 minute 9.63 seconds behind. Mike Spence crossed the line in 4th, he was 1 minute 21.86 seconds behind. Jim Clark had a problem with his engine and oil line and so retired on lap 64, but was classified in 5th, and Pedro Rodriguez rounded off the top 6, he was 1 lap down. Jim Clark was the fastest man of the race, posting a lap time of 1 minute 58.37 seconds. Welcome to the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, where a lap starts off with a long run down into turn 1, a long right-hander that tightens towards the end, leading into turns 2 and 3, a tight right-left chicane. Then, after a fairly long straightaway, we come into turns 4 and 5, a left-right chicane. Be careful as the second corner is significantly tighter, and it can catch you out. Turn 6 is next, a very tight right-hand hairpin, with a lot of camber. This is followed by a long series of S's. Stay focused and be patient through here, as most of the corners are quite slower than you'd expect. But eventually we make our way into turn 14, a very long 180-degree banked right-hander that brings us around onto the main straight, and that is a lap around the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. And here we are in qualifying for the Mexican Grand Prix, coming around to set our first and only qualifying lap, because I realized that no one was actually qualifying. This is halfway in the session and no one went out, so I managed to post a 151.315, which places us in pole position, and well, that's that. Anyway, here is the previous Mexican Grand Prix winner, since we only had one other Grand Prix here, and here we have Andy Higgs on pole with Graham Hill in 2nd, John Surtees 3rd, Bruce McLaren 4th, 5th is Richie Ginther, followed by Dan Gurney in 6th. Then we have Jack Brabham in 7th, in 8th we have Joe Siffert, 9th is Peter Arundel, followed by Lorenzo Bandini in 10th. In 11th we have Phil Hill, followed by Chris Amon in 12th, 13th is Innes Ireland, John Taylor 14th, 15th is Pedro Rodriguez, a new face on the grid, followed by Joe Bonnier in 16th. Moises Solanas, another new face on the grid, is 17th, Trevor Taylor 18th, and Mike Halewood is 19th. So that is the grid lineup for the Mexican Grand Prix, and here we are for the final round of the season. Hopefully it will be a good race for Andy. Obviously we would like to win, that would be absolutely fantastic. The flag is down and we are off for the final round of the season. We make a very good start, a lot of smoke, but we managed to stay in the lead of the pack, so that's very good going into turn 1. However, Bruce McLaren immediately overtakes us as we approach turn 1 here, and I cannot get back near him. However, we will obviously be trying to get back as soon as possible, as John Surtees overtakes me and pushes me off the circuit here, so I had to go off. I slowed down so I didn't gain any time out of that, and that forced me down into 11th, so not a very good first corner there, but the initial launch was very good. However, as soon as McLaren and Surtees overtook me, everything kind of went out the window, especially when Surtees came into the equation through turn 2 there. But hopefully we can regain all those lost positions. That would be quite ideal. Obviously we want to win this race. It's very important for next season as we come through the S's now, and I go a bit wide. I touch that raised curb, which kind of unsettles the car, throws me off the track, and now we lost a bunch of time. We are down in 19th, right at the back of the pack. That's not very good. Hopefully we can catch up with everyone in front. As we start lap 2, Lorenzo Bandini is at the side of the track. Something happened to his car, and there are a couple of other cars going very slowly, so we move up into 16th, which is quite nice. Chasing after Joe Siffert at the moment as we take a look at a replay of Bandini, who touches one of the Coopers, I believe that was, loses control of his car, ends up at the side of the road, and for some reason decides to... Actually no, he's trying to get back onto the track, then gets collected by someone else, gets spun around, ends up at the side of the track again, and decides that he had more than enough, as we now come around to try and overtake Pedro Rodriguez for 15th. We have Siffert right in front of us, and hopefully we can overtake him as well. Coming through these S's, quite an interesting part of the circuit, a good opportunity to try and overtake people. However, I couldn't overtake Siffert yet, as we now come through the final corner to finish lap 2 and start lap 3. I managed to overtake Siffert. I tried to go around Innes Ireland as well, however he kind of parked his car right in front of me on the racing line, so there was not much I could have done. Then Siffert overtakes me without any problems. So does Pedro Rodriguez, as I overtake Innes Ireland, who was quite slow going on that straight. Now moving on to lap 3, I tried to make a move on Trevor Taylor coming into the hairpin, then on Pedro Rodriguez. However, he has the upper hand. He was on the outside, so he was able to keep more momentum going through the corner. As we now pass Bruce McLaren, who was at the side of the road, something happened to him. Hopefully we'll get a replay of that. That would be quite nice. And yes, indeed we have a replay. Here is Bruce McLaren coming into the hairpin, looking fine at the moment, chasing after whoever is in front of him, I'm not quite sure. Coming through that left-hander, then through the right-hander, through the same corner I lost control, touches that raised curb, which sends him flying onto the other side of the track, off the track even, and he is out of the race. As we now come around to finish lap 3, I once again overtake Pedro Rodriguez for 12th, then try to overtake Siffert for 11th, and that's quite nicely done. However, I had a feeling that Siffert might be able to overtake us once again through on the straightaway, and I was quite right, as Siffert effortlessly moves past us. So now it's a question of whether or not we can regain that position coming through these slow corners, and I kind of force my way on the outside there and make the maneuver, and now chasing after Mike Hillwood. However, as we come into the hairpin, Pedro Rodriguez managed to overtake us once again. I then tried to get back at him, however he parked his car right on the racing line, but then coming through this corner, this right-hander side by side made it quite difficult. Then coming through this left-hander, we make contact. Pedro Rodriguez lost control of his car, and so we move up into 11th. Now coming around to finish lap 4, we overtake Mike Hillwood without too much of a problem. Now taking a look at Moises Solana, hopefully we can overtake him as well, but not quite. His car is much faster apparently on the straight, so we cannot quite get around him. As Mike Hillwood passes us as well, we drop down in 11th. That's not very good, as we now come around on lap 5, trying to make up more positions. This is Dan Gurney we are looking at, trying to take 10th away from him, and we do that quite easily. Now let's see if we can overtake Mike Hillwood as well. That would be, well, very good. We need to try and win this race, and we overtake Phil Hill as well, chasing once again after Moises Solana, so that's quite nice. We're in 8th, very near the point. Coming around to finish lap 5, and we overtake Moises Solana for 7th, just one place below the points. Richie Ginster is next. Hopefully we can catch him fairly soon. However, a little bit later, Moises Solana manages to overtake us, so we drop back down to 8th. That I wasn't very happy with that, so I made it my mission to try and overtake him again, and I kind of did for a split second there, but he managed to keep the faster line and stayed in front as I continued trying to overtake Moises Solana here on lap 6, and finally we break through and we are once again in 7th and chasing after Richie Ginster. That's quite nice. Then on lap 7 I finally caught up to Richie Ginster and we move up into 6th, so that's 1 point if we manage to finish in this position. However, we want more. Obviously 9 points would be the best solution, as we now get closer and closer to Graham Hill, and eventually we go past Graham Hill and we are now 5th, looking at Chris Amon in front of us now. Hopefully we can overtake him as well soon enough. That would be quite outstanding as I try to inch my way closer and closer, and there we have it. We are now in the 4th and we are now in pursuit of Jack Brabham, who is about 8 seconds up the road. And here is the replay of John Surtees coming around to set the fastest lap of the race as he comes around to finish lap 9, I believe. So congratulations to Surtees for that, as we now come around closing in on Jack Brabham and Peter Rundle. We get past Brabham, not past Rundle unfortunately, and then Brabham is faster on the straight than us and overtakes us. Not quite what we had in mind, but that works as we move on to lap 10 now and we overtake Brabham once again, and now looking once again at Peter Rundle for 2nd place. That would be quite amazing if we could manage to do that soon enough. Not through there. He shuts the door. However, I find a gap through there, not a big gap, but there was a gap there. I managed to take it and we are now in 2nd and chasing after John Surtees, who is leading the race. However, I do not think we'll be able to catch Surtees. There's not enough time. He is almost 1 minute ahead of us, and now moving on to lap 13 he pulled away even more, and I once again go wide through that corner, touch that raised curb that flips me over, and I try to get back into gear. However, that killed my engine and we are out of the Mexican Grand Prix, unfortunately, as we take a look at a replay of that. Coming through the hairpin now and through the left-hander, a bit wide, carried a bit too much speed through there, touched that raised curb, not a good idea. That flipped the car over. I then tried to get back into the race. However, I think I lifted the clutch a little bit too early. That killed the engine and we are now out of the Mexican Grand Prix. Not a very good outcome here. That wasn't what I wanted. We would have wanted to obviously try and win, but 2nd would have been obviously better than just finishing, well, retiring from the race. As we now take a look at a replay of Peter Rundle on lap 20, who is coming around this right-hander. He gets taken out by John Surtees, no less. The leader of the race takes Peter Rundle out. Actually, John Surtees, it looked like he was cutting the track there, so naughty on John Surtees' part, as we now move to the end of the race and see John Surtees take the win of the Mexican Grand Prix. Brabham finished 2nd, Hill with 3rd, Solana 4th, 5th, Chris Amon, and Graham Hill is 6th. So that was the Mexican Grand Prix. Although Surtees won the Mexican Grand Prix, obviously the Drivers' Championship goes to Andy Higgs, despite the fact that he didn't score any points in this race. A bit disappointing to end the season that way, but hey, what can you do, right? Anyway, here are the career statistics, and this was Andy's 141st Grand Prix. His best start is in 1st, has 12 pole positions, has set 22 fastest laps. His best finishes in 1st, has completed 86 races, 69 of them in the points, has won 40 Grand Prix, 4 at the Indianapolis 500, 6 in Monaco, has 8 championships under his belt, has scored a total of 470 points, has retired 45 times, has experienced 2,845 out of 3,497 laps, has 6 bronze trophies, 15 silver trophies, 40 gold trophies, and as an extension 40 podiums. And here is one final look at the drivers' standings. Andy Higgs obviously wins the 1964 Drivers' Championship with Surtees finishing 2nd, Clark 3rd, Bandini 4th, 5th Chris Amon, and on equal points in 6th we have Mike Hillwood, Peter Revson, and Mike Spence. The last person to score points is Frank Gardner down in 26th, and bringing up the bottom of the driver standings is De Cabral down in 42nd. So those are the driver standings. Now let's move on to the constructors. And here we have Honda winning the Constructors Championship from Lotus, who finished 2nd, Ferrari 3rd, Rec Parnell Racing 4th, R.C. Walker Racing Team and Peter Revson sharing 5th. John Wilmot Automobiles are the last team to score points in 16th, and John Love bringing up the bottom of the constructor standings in 24th. So that was the 1964 Mexican Grand Prix. That was the 1964 season. Congratulations to Andy and Honda. They managed to win their respective championships. So that's quite nice, and it's quite nice to see Andy winning another championship after such a long time. And with that, we actually managed to break the real world record of most championships won by a single driver. And that was Michael Schumacher with 7. Now it's Andy Higgs with 8th. Obviously this doesn't really count in the real world, but hey, that's quite nice to have 8 championships won. Although it was kind of, well, not the way I would have wanted it to end. Obviously it would have been a little bit nicer if Jim Clark would have made his appearance in the final 2 races, but he didn't, unfortunately. But anyway, that is the end of the 1964 season. Quite a good season for Andy and for Honda, obviously, and we're now looking forward to what 1965 might bring along. And before we move on, let's take a look at the team and driver changes for the 1965 season, and we'll start as usual with Ferrari. Their lineup will be mostly the same as in 1964, with Surtees and Bandini at the wheel, whilst Carfiotti will be taking a break from racing. His seat will be taken by rookie Nino Vaccarella. Cooper's lineup will consist of Bruce McLaren and rookie Austrian Jochen Rindt in his first full season, whilst American Phil Hill will not be racing this season. Graham Hill will be joined by rookie Jackie Stewart at Owen Racing, whilst his former teammate Ginther will be moving over to Honda. Lotus will have Mike Spence, Jim Clark and Moises Solana at the wheel, whilst Peter Arundel and Gerhard Mitter will be missing from the grid. Due to De Beaufort's untimely demise during the practice session for the German Grand Prix, his team, Equipe Marsbergen, will not be racing in 1965. Brabham's team will be mostly the same as in 1964, with Brabham himself and Dan Gurney at the wheel, but also joining them in 1965 will be Denny Holm. Rec Parnell will be returning for another season in Formula 1, and their driver lineup will consist of former Scuderia Centro Sud driver Tony Maggs, former Owen Racing driver Richard Atwood, and former BRP driver Ennis Ireland, whilst Chris Amon and Mike Hillwood will be missing from the grid. BRP will not be returning in 1965. This will leave Trevor Taylor without a drive in the coming season. Joe Sifford decided to join Joe Bonnier at Rob Walker's team, and former RRC Walker Racing Team drivers Edgar Bart and Hap Sharp will not be racing in 1965. André Pilet and his team Equipe Scirocco will not be racing next season either. Also missing from the grid will be Peter Revson, Bernard Colomb and Maurice Saint-Aignan. DW Racing Enterprises will be returning, however, and their driver will be Bob Anderson, just like in 1964. Over at Honda, there is a slight possibility that Andy Higgs will return for a second season. If not, his seat will be given to Ronnie Bucknam, who will be joined by Richie Ginther. Scuderia Centro Sud will have returning Maston Gregory and Lucien Bianchi behind the wheel, leaving Baghetti without a drive for 1965. Bob Gerard's team will not be returning next season. As such, John Taylor will be left without a drive. John Wilmot Automobiles will be returning for 1965, and their lineup will be made up of Frank Gardner and rookie Paul Hawkins. North American Racing Team will be joining us for their first full season in Formula 1, with Mexican Pedro Rodriguez and Bob Bondurant from the United States. John Love will also be returning, and just like in 1964, he will be driving a privately entered car. Another new team on the 1965 grid will be David Prophet Racing, and it will be driven by David Prophet himself. Otello Nucci is another new team for 1965, and their driver will be either Peter de Klerk or 8-times world champion Andy Higgs, although the latter is not confirmed yet. Ian Raby will be racing for himself again this coming season. And last but certainly not least, we have one more new team joining us in 1965, and they are LDS with Sam Tingle at the wheel. So those are the team and driver changes for the 1965 season. Looking forward to that. Always exciting times when changes come around, so that's quite nice. And hopefully things will go well for Andy Higgs in 1965 as well. That would be quite nice, although it will mostly be dictated by the team he will be driving for. But anyway, that is the end of the 1964 season. The end of this video, not much more to talk about here. Everything I needed to cover, I think I've covered, so yeah, that is it. The moment this video goes live, I will give you guys a few more hours to vote for next season's team if you haven't done so already, so make sure to check the link in the description that will take you to the straw poll where you can cast your vote. Other than that, I think that's really it. So yeah, see you all in the 1965 season. Again, hopefully that will be a good season for Andy, and if not, well, at least we'll have some fun. So yeah, once again, don't forget to vote for next season's team. Link is in the description. I also have a second channel where I will be playing all sorts of different games. At the moment, I'm doing a playthrough of The Darkness and the movies, so if you're interested in any of those games, there will be a link in the description to my second channel as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, stay sharp.